to just kind of go on their own.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would guess I'd just love to check in with you. Has it been a week yet? It's been 2 weeks. I don't even
Yeah.
remember. We left the 20th. Okay, so
The 21st. Yeah.
it's been about 10 days. So how are you feeling about the whole experience? You say like you're still processing some of the things that have come up for you. Like what's your sense of like, wow, I just went through the whole training and some things came up for me and I've got some more things to work on. Like what's that like for you?
Yeah, I was really looking forward to this training. I had heard about it the beginning of the year, and I was considering maybe doing July, but now and it was really filled to come in October. And it was coming at a really good time in my life. I was ready to continue to really upgrade my body work as well, just to continue to evolve. I feel like I'm a constant student. I'm always wanting to do the next thing. And I feel like it was a perfect time, like a portal where certain things in my life were ending and I was ready to move to the next level and heal some things. So, as much as I wanted to have a different technique or, fine tune my technique, I was ready to do some of my own healing work.
Hmm.
So now, after, it's like 10 days later, it was a profound experience. We showed up with like this beautiful group of people that were, they've been through a lot. They have a lot of skill sets. They've been in the field of bodywork for a long time. And we all had a very similar, I would say, intention of doing our own healing work, but then also, yeah, fine tuning for our clients as well. And then um, I think that we had really nice group cohesion as well. And I felt really at home with the people that showed up. And so, yeah. Can you ask me another question? Because I'm feeling like I
Absolutely.
have a lot to say, and I'm
Sure.
like,
Yeah. Yeah, and then it was really great to see you guys all really gel, and I was so happy that happened because it is like it's kind of a prerequisite to feel safe to even go to those places that we want to do that work at. And I'll just cut in here and preface like, a large part of what draws people to these trainings is like, okay, well, maybe I already have the craniosacral piece or I have myofascial experience. It's not so much that I want to do the technique, but I want to see this big picture of how this all fits in with the somatic work and what's really accessible to me with the somatic work. So did you I mean, when you came into the class, you saw that as part of what we were doing. Had you had experience having any sort of internal journey and release, or had you seen on social media? We can, if you're into this stuff, you see it everywhere. People screaming and crying and seminars, people on tables shaking and all of this stuff. It
yeah.
seems a little bit beyond belief. But then when it happens to you and you see the way that when I really open myself up to what are these sensations telling me, and then how specific the answer from the body is about, well, first let's take you here in your memory and we'll kind of hop, skip, and jump around some things, and then bam, you find the core of it. Which for you, I think you had some really specific experiences. So I guess to orient you, and this is good for your clients too, to kind of like be in the seat of like, well, I heard about this stuff, I've seen some things online, but I don't really know what that experience is like. So did you have like an idea of what could happen to you, or were you
Oh,
surprised or
yeah. I mean, so yes, I've had many years of my own inner work, starting with yoga and Ayurveda. I've been, meditating for a long time and also went down the road of therapeutic psychedelic work. So a lot of my own inner journey, I got to have a good inner map and an idea of where this could go. And I was ready and curious to see where it would take me. And I am steeped in that world. I'm steeped in the world of body work and spirituality and inner growth. It's all over my social media. It's what I'm consuming constantly. So, yes, I had an idea. I just wasn't sure what layer was ready to come up. And as far as my experience in body work, um, I've done the massage school training and I did some deeper training in what's called fascialization or deep fascia release. And so I've been doing that work with clients and I've been seeing some amazing results for them, just feeling better, feeling like they could walk differently, feeling lighter. And I got the feeling of what it feels like underneath, my hands for fascia to unwind and to melt. So I had
Mhm.
that experience. I was curious in the lighter touch, the more superficial work. I knew eventually I would be getting into that. I also was really into cranial sacral when we had that introduction class in school. And it felt like I was able to tap into some of the movement of the energy and the waters of the body, which I got much deeper into in class with you in the training. And then what I really wanted out of the class was to have that dialoguing experience. So, how can I bring these questions, this like line of questioning to my clients where I'm not putting the filter on, I'm not projecting my stuff or what I know. And, from Ayurveda and holistic medicine, we have a certain filter, we have a lens from which we look at. We're like, okay, well, there's resentment and anger in the liver and grief in the lungs, and we have this kind of roadmap. But what you put on the table, which was beautiful, that allowed me to drop this filter and get into more of like a curiosity and a non-doer role, was to be like, I wonder what's there. Like, what is there for us? And it was, that with a line of questioning as far as like open-ended questions. It's taken some fine tuning. But it's been really helpful. And since then, I've been utilizing this technique with my clients, and I'm seeing some beautiful
Mhm.
opening and possibility, and even some emotional releases. And you asked about like, were you ready to have like this kind of somatic experience, which we'll get into, was like, I'm I'm here for it. Like I'm
Yeah.
ready to dive in. Like this is my personality. Like I'm here for the healing. I'm here to dive in deep. I want to, relieve myself of these stories because as much as I stand in an authority position in my business, I'm a human and I've got my stuff. And I just want to be as aware of it as I can. And in order
Mhm.
to move forward in my life and to grow, like I was really ready to shed some of these layers. And specifically, what I realized is I had a lot of lower back pain and
Mhm.
hip pain. And of course, just that, shoulder neck tension that a lot of us carry around.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, so great. So I'm hearing you like seeing from like the technique and the perspective of the therapist, like okay, incorporating some of the deep fascia work that you were already doing, but maybe zooming out a little bit of the lenses that you learned to observe the body were, well, specific techniques, and this is how we approach, and we define this experience as such, and I have a system of evaluation. And I don't know if you mentioned your Ayurveda background, but that's one that I know I brought up in class because people will also have a tendency to rely on, and these are great systems. I mean, thousands year old tried and true systems. Whereas, I kind of put Ayurveda and Chinese medicine in a similar boat. I don't know as much about Ayurveda's assignment of emotional areas to the body. But I know in Chinese medicine, like what comes up, oh, well, anger will affect the liver, et cetera, et cetera. And I encourage you guys all to let go of those maps for a while, to be in the uncharted territory, to just go, what is this for them and how do they experience it? Because we may find that there's this really winding road of interconnection, that anger is not necessarily in the liver. And if we stick with that, we may, want to see certain, or we may put blinders on that prevent us from seeing that for this person at this time in this moment, it is not in the liver. It's in a unique experience related to them and how they were affected by pain, trauma, emotional, duress. So I'd love to hear from you, and I think this will help anybody who listens to either one of us. What was it like for you to go through the experience where, okay, I have some stuff, I'm ready for it, I've seen it, this is my world, I want to go a little bit deeper and find what's in there. How did that manifest through the days of the training, which could lead to you talking about like the specific things, like we know about the javelin, if you want to talk about that. But I'd love to hear kind of like how it did it creep up on you, or did you feel like you got thrown in the deep end, or what was your first cue? Something's happening here. I'm getting worked on, and now it's going in this emotional, direction.
Yeah, so from day one, I was able to tap into my soma, my inner waters, the sensations in my body. So right away with the work we were doing, I was ready to go within and really like get into my body and to feel those things. So I was having the first day, it was like, oh wow, this is like beautiful and ecstatic. And I had a moment on the
Oh, yeah, that's
table
right.
where I had a vision of these like these colorful paint splotches, and they turned into flowers.
Mm,
And you had come over and you started the dialogue with me about, oh, flowers, welcome flowers. How, what do these flowers have for you? Or, is there a sensation coming up with these flowers? And I just said, beauty, they're beautiful. And then right away, that just kind of like overflowed into this like, I am beautiful. I
mm,
feel so beautiful and wow. And to give that context, like I was coming out of a time like this hermit period where I really wasn't feeling beautiful. I was kind of like doing my inner work and I was very inside. And like I said, this time period marked an opportunity for me to kind of blossom and be seen and flower and unfold.
mm,
And so it was like this appreciation of myself, who I am, what I've been, all the work I've done.
mm,
And it spiraled a little bit into like some grief because I am a mother. I do have daughters. And, it was like thinking about the times that I didn't love myself and then just not wanting that for my daughters to have to go through that.
mm.
So
Yeah.
right there, like the emotional waters started to turn up a bit and we were going a little bit deeper. And because of the structure of the class, right, we could only do this in chunks. Whereas like if I was on the table
Mm,
for a session, we would have been able to spiral and continue to move through that. But I was able to process throughout the time, which was beautiful. So it would like these things would come up and then I would have time to integrate. We also had, just to mention, we had a sound healing one
mm,
night and then an ecstatic dance another night, which really helped me to like process and integrate the day's work that we had been through. So that
mm.
was like day one. That was day
Yeah.
one.
Can I ask too? Because
Yeah.
during that, I remember during that joy release, like you went into kind of a spiral or like a wave kind of thing.
Yeah.
How did that experience of, okay, there's joy, there's beauty, there's a little grief, like where did that register physically? Like did you feel shifts or movements around that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
And that was a lot of like spiraling in my feet and my legs. I could
mm,
feel energy moving into my hands and my
mm,
wrists. So I just felt like a lot of energy moving through my body. And this was a buildup, right? This didn't just happen like someone put their hand on me and then I was going into this. Like it was a buildup where my body was unraveling and I was feeling the energy starting to move. And then I was able to, allow that energy to flow through. And it was very like spinal energy coming through, like,
mm,
and, and like I said, my practice of being presence with myself is like, okay, I can let this energy happen. Like I'm very safe with me. I'm also in a very safe space. I felt very, very held by you and the group as well. Like the container that you provide is structured
mm.
and it gives a lot of information. But then when we switch over into the body work, there is just this gentleness, this compassion, this groundedness that you bring that really allows for that space of safety to feel like, okay, I can feel this. I can make this noise. I can express this. And it was beautiful.
Great. Awesome. That's so cool. And it just really gets into the abstract quality. And that's, what's so important to me is that everybody has their own experience. And the fascia is a little bit nonlinear in how it's distributing forces and what exactly is moving where, and there's so much I want to unpack and even get better at articulating what I feel related to that piezoelectric quality. And people are now doing research about quantum interactions in the fascia. Like that's a little bit above my ability to articulate, but we're present for that and we're feeling that. And so while I don't try to teach from the energetic perspective, like there are sensations that feel like unravelings or waves or bubbles or spirals coming through. But to tie that through for your clients and for anybody who's interested is Margaret's inner experience was she just, after a certain amount of being in touch with her body, her mind's eye brought up these flowers, and then those flowers brought the emotional quality, and with the emotional quality became all this movement and unraveling of things that were stuck in a process that was incomplete. And so wherever we have that incomplete stuck process, the physiology is locked down, there's a little bit of holding, and so, whether it's beauty, it's not always screaming and crying when the emotions need to come out. It can be joy,
No, it was
laughter, or
ecstatic.
yeah, ecstatic, and that's just so wonderful when that happens. So your experience was, it sounds like coming in as someone who's experienced focusing their awareness onto their inner experience. I just said experience like 5 times in a row. Your experience was that you're experienced and experiencing, but
Yeah, I
that's the
mean,
way to
it was an
articulate it.
experience.
You
There
were
was a
very,
lot of experiencing, a lot of, somatic experiencing and inner experience. And
yeah.
um, it was a beautiful one. And like, so that kind of, it turned over into day two where I had another experience with, a classmate of mine. And I signed up for this lesson, this interaction where I felt like I was being bulldozed.
Mm,
And just so happens I have obviously had these relationships in the past where I've been in communication with bulldozing archetypes. I
mm,
myself tend to be a bulldozer at times, which,
mhm.
we continue to work on, but, I can come in there and say, like, I'm going to fix, like, I'm going to
Yeah.
do it. And like, as a mother too, I'm trying to guide my children as with much openness and acceptance of who they are and where they're at. But at the same time, like, I'm mama and we need to, get things done and do things. So it's like a balancing act, right?
Mhm.
And I come in with that archetype of fixer as well. And as much as I've tried to step back and let that ego really take the back seat while I'm working with clients on the table, especially when I feel tired or I start to feel overwhelmed or run down, like I know that I'm doing too much. So I had
Mm,
this experience on the table while I was receiving. And I was like, man, I'm really feeling bulldozed right now. And I'm having this conversation in my head. We're learning. It's okay. Like, it's all good. But like in my body, I was like, I don't like this. Right. But I
mhm.
didn't speak. And so this is also a reflection, a mirror for me of
Yeah.
how I do my life in relationship as well, in my everyday. So it was a beautiful reflection for me. I got off the table. I was kind of really churned up, and you were able to lead me through, kind of ground me back into my heart, where I had an
Mm.
unraveling of a beautiful image of, at first, a closed green rose.
Oh,
And then
right.
you walked me through and you were just like, oh, hello, green rose. Like, and then I was speaking, I said, it's starting to open. And what does that feel like? And I started starting to feel more calm. And then I had this like green liquid nectar coming out of the green
Mm,
rose. And I was like, and you asked, like, how does that feel? I'm like, oh, it's so comforting. It's so satisfying. So I was able to like come back down a little bit and continue. And then when I went outside into this beautiful landscape, by the way, where we were in North Carolina and Marshall,
mm,
at Munaya Resort, we were on top of this mountain and the sun is shining, beautiful fall weather. And I was able to just cry it out into
mm.
the mountain, be held by the sun and the earth. And I was able to cry and grieve those times that I didn't speak for myself, grieve the times where I allowed myself to be bulldozed, didn't speak my needs, and unravel some of the things that I was, like I said, just coming out of a relationship that I felt that
Mm.
way and didn't speak my truth and didn't honor myself. And so coming into this time period where I'm like really learning to honor myself and love myself and respect myself was a huge piece to the puzzle that was yeah, giving me a lot.
Yeah, that's super powerful, and it speaks to, as body workers, we are not clinical psychotherapists. However, we are unintentionally, or with this training and this kind of approach, intentionally holding space for the psychosomatic aspect and the psychology and the inner identity and beliefs and programs and patterns. How do you feel like, and I know you have done a lot of your own inner work, bringing the touch element in to access some of these places that maybe, and I don't know if in your journey you've done talk therapy and things like that. How do you feel like the touch aspect really helped you to unlock some of those places?
Oh, I mean, it's essential. For me, it's essential. As a body worker, my love language is touch. It's
Mm-hmm.
part of how I communicate on a daily basis. Through my yoga and Ayurveda journey, Abhyanga, self-massage was a daily routine, daily ritual that I did for myself. And so it was so grounding. And it gives me that proprioception that sometimes I need, like as a person who can be very aware of energies and things going around that may not be like tangible in the
Mm.
gross or 3D. The touch gives me that awareness of where I am in space and makes me feel really safe. So when
Yeah,
you
that's
when
right.
you speak, yeah, I mean when you speak to the touch, it's like I'm getting the feeling like we can move into the javelin story.
Sure. Yeah, please.
Yeah, so when I'm having these experiences of being touched on certain parts of my body, right? So we're moving into the cranial sacral aspect at this time. I think we're like in around yeah, we're day 3. And one of the other students had their hand on my sacrum, and I was having memories of a time that I like was at the beach and I was scorpioned,
Oh,
body surfing
oh wow.
at the beach. And I had definitely cried some tears about that, but then also a time in my life where I played college basketball, and we had to do these drills where we were taking charges and constantly falling on our tailbones over and over again and getting hit and falling back onto
Mm.
our to the tailbone. It's just something you do. Probably not the greatest thing to practice, but we did it. And I remember that day being pretty um, tough on a lot of us. So that memory came through, and I was like, oh, yeah. But in the past, I've grieved a lot of that. I've worked through a lot of that. I had had dreams, like anxiety dreams, for years after my college basketball career, and it tied into a lot of like my father's story, which we'll talk about because all of my
Mhm.
coaches have been male coaches,
Mm.
and it's a lot of wrapped up in my own self-value and self-worth. So anyway, I did some work around that. So I was like, you know what, there's not much emotion there for me right now. Let's continue. And then I was guided to ask her to put her hand on my arm where I hold a lot of tension. And I was like, okay, yeah, there's a little something there. And then I was like, actually, could you move it just a little bit, to the outside? And when she hit that button, another button lighted up or lit up
Mm.
in my occiput, and we're very close together. So I asked if another practitioner, like another student, come over. I said, someone come over here and
Yeah.
put their hand on my occiput, press this button. And she did. And that started that spontaneous unwinding of the javelin story where I flash
Mm.
back to the state tournament in high school, and I'm there in track and field, and I'm ready to like throw my big spear. But I
Uh-huh.
was you know so I'm on the table and I'm ready, and I'm like really like my body started to go into that full
Yeah.
like extension, and I'm twisting just like the motion of the
Right.
javelin that I practiced over and over and over. Right,
Hmm.
so being being the aware person that I am, I was very lucid while it was happening, and I started to laugh like, wow, I can't believe this is happening. Like very like witness
Hmm.
perspective. And I heard you start to come over, and I heard people gathering around me. So I knew there were people around, and I really wanted to throw the javelin. Like I really wanted to go ahead and whip my arm around. And I was like, I said like, I need to throw the javelin. And then you were like, throw the javelin.
Yes.
And I ended up face down on the table, which is so beautiful. Like our bodies are so wise and so intelligent. Like I didn't fall off the table. No one
Yeah.
stopped me from falling off the table. My body knew what it needed to do. And
Hmm.
so I was at that time, I think I was feeling energy in the room. I'm like, all right, let's take this down. Like I just need to take this down. So we did, it kind of came back grounded down. It took me some time because I was very deep in that trance state. I was very deep in that theta state where my
Hmm.
body was able to do that unconscious unwinding.
Hmm.
And it was really powerful for me, kind of how that unfolded. But I'll let you come in and maybe comment
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, it is. You say like it's just so incredible to see how wise the body is. And it's something that we can talk about. We can talk about fascial anatomy, we can talk about the nervous system, we can talk about the unconscious parts of the brain that maybe get activated during a somatic release. But it's really best experienced because you don't really see the symphony of how it all comes together until you're in it and you're like, oh my gosh. I was feeling something in my body. That led me to some dreamy imagery, and then that plopped me right back in the middle of like a total flashback in a memory. And now my body's just in the memory. I'm just part of it. I'm throwing the javelin, you know? And for me, that was my sledding story where I was the little boy trapped on the sled going backwards, going, ah, and everything up here was screaming, and everything back here was screaming, you know, like. I could see the gray sky. I was like, "Oh my God, I'm here." It's like 1993, and I'm back. I'm stuck on the sled again. What the hell?
Yeah.
But this is also what it takes time. And Margaret, you're somebody who, like you said, is really steeped in this world and have practiced a lot of inner awareness skills. It's not to intimidate anybody that thinks as soon as she puts hands on you or I put hands on you or you come to this class that you're going to be dropped into the deep end. You might be if you've been doing a lot of work, but if you've been doing a lot of work, you're ready to be in the deep end. And we have the lifeguards and we've got the swimmies and the buoys and all of that. So you're not going to be alone in the deep waters. But for clients to understand, you know, if you haven't been doing a lot of work on this regard, the progress that Margaret's describing happens a lot more in little pieces. And so it becomes a great way to get familiar with your internal landscape, to start asking questions. What does this feeling mean? What is this telling me? Is there a deeper story here? And to practice surrender, stillness, letting go, allowing. So the somatic work is not always, we're on a bullet train towards these deep, crazy unwinding and releases. You get your ticket on the train and you might go a few stops, go the scenic route. It can take its time. But if you have been building up these skills, you'll find that you are in touch with that. And the touch, the myofascial and the cranial sacral touch just opens you to those deeper nooks and crannies where things are hiding and you're ready to unravel them in these big motions that the whole body's involved in. But at the same time, either way, wherever you're at in the journey, what Margaret's saying about just like I realize how wise the body is now. I knew it wasn't here. It was here, just ever so slightly over to the left. And then when that was there, it was here, and I knew I needed another touch. Lots of people experienced their proprioception and their interoception activating to such a high degree that they knew exactly what they needed, even when they were unable to communicate in a nonverbal flashback where they were contorted up off the table, moving through a stuck process. Another student who went, I feel like, about as deep as you did, but maybe was not as lucid or prepared with
Right.
those internal skill sets.
Mhm.
She was very deep in it and was nonverbal for up to like 10 minutes at a time, but then would come out and be like, you need to squeeze my hips. You need to roll me this way. You need to push me that way. And so it's very true. I've got to plug my laptop in here 1 second. It's very true that this work will give you an experience of just how intelligent our body is in comparison with our mind and our intellect. Um, Sorry, let's get this plugged in before I keep talking. because we live and we've been trained to live, and our whole system operates in the intellect, in the mind. And if we can't verify or validate things from a Western empirical objective experience, then they're considered invalid or not provable or fake. However, when you trust in the unknown, in the unconscious, you let the body and sensation and awareness drive rather than critical thinking. Critical thinking will shut this process down. If you start analyzing
Yeah.
everything, you will take yourself out of the moment. What you need to do is feel and sense and just have awareness and follow that. And so we're doing a more right-brained, body-oriented somatic process. And that is where we're able to access these things that, decades of talking to the therapist, but being stuck in the mind is not working through the full process where the body experienced something that locked it in a state of incomplete process. And now we are allowing that experience to come back up to complete the process so that we can move through it and not be in an iceberg of holding on to that thing that happened, even if we don't remember it or realize how much it's impacting us. I want to be respectful of your time too, Margaret. It's about 10:40. How are you doing on time?
I'm good.
Because I would like to now ask you, and this would be really good for you, what do you want to say, having gone through this experience, and people can listen to this and get more of an idea, what do you want to tell your clients about this process and how you're prepared to be with them after this training? Like, how do you feel about doing this work with others? What do you want them to know or hear from you around what would you tell your clients? Let's just say that this is your shameless self-promotion piece. We flip this down and you get to say, hey, I just went through this. I'm ready, like you don't even have to go into detail. Maybe just like imagine that the clients are watching this and this you're gonna tell them what you want to say about doing somatic work with them.
Yeah, I'm so excited to bring this work, to my client base and to the people here in New Jersey. Um, this part of the grid, we need this. We need this work. So I'm really excited to see who shows up because I know it's
Mhm.
also going to shift my client base as well. So I'm looking forward to see who comes to the door. And like you were speaking before about that top-down effect, like I've definitely done my share of talk therapy and it's helped me a lot. And I've talked about my father's story. I've talked a lot about that experience growing up as a kid, feeling abandoned, all these, high performing sports and needing to be the best and these things wrapped up in my value. I understood those things on an intellectual level. Okay, I've talked enough
Mhm.
about it. And then, what Daniel you're talking about is this like bottom up effect is where we can access those stories that are hiding in places in our bodies that we've protected and we've kind of hid them away. And what's so interesting is what I realized is like those pieces, those parts of us, those stories are hidden in those dark spaces and the tissue is literally dehydrated. It is offline. If you think about a grid, um it's there's no light. There's no light, there's no water. It's not online. It's not communicating with the rest of your nervous system. And through this like the touch through the myofascial release, we're able to rehydrate those tissues. They are able to receive light and energy again, life force, which lights them up, gets them back on the grid, and then start communicating back to the nervous system. And this has been my experience where, and then this story can come from the subconscious, right? The darkness, the shadow, and come up into the light where it becomes conscious. And then my body can unwind that story and it can come out. It can be heard and I can process that on for me feels more complete. So
Mhm.
it's like the mind and the body meeting at the nervous system level
Mhm.
and having that communication and then finally like really letting go. So a continuation of my javelin story is coming home after the course and knowing that I really needed to tend to myself. I just put my yoga mat down I got my myofascial ball, and
Hmm.
I was curious as to what was going to come up for me. So I placed the ball right back on that spot because it was still lit up for me. And to a degree, it's a little bit still there, but not where it was before.
Hmm.
And you know, I I ugly cried for an hour
Hmm.
working on my scapula and really worked through that father story, that father wound stuff for me, and how it was really tied into my value, my worth, and how I showed up in the world.
Hmm.
And since then, I've been able to process that and integrate that, and that's opened up more layers for
Hmm.
me to
Hmm.
explore. And now, I think it's important to mention, like you said, not everyone gets on the table and is ready to have this full spontaneous unwinding, but they can have happen in small increments. A couple of the students did experience unwindings. And recently, a client on my table,
Oh,
had
wow, really?
a very gentle unwinding, like a very just gentle, like the
Hmm.
neck just went like this. And when she got off the table, she was like, was that you or me? And I was like, that was your body. That was your body because
Yeah,
it wasn't me. I was just there.
reflection.
I was just there guiding the thing, right? And so something as small as this movement,
Hmm.
right, of the spine doing this. It's like
Hmm.
that's the beginning of that thing
Right.
and can happen just so gently. But you mentioned it's like the intellectual mind wants to get in the way. So as much as we can practice mindfulness, practice grounding, getting curious with our experience, having moments of stillness during our day, having moments of quiet during the day, and kind of carving those moments out as much as we can, we start to get aware of our own inner experience. And I had a client reach out and she said, I was, anxiety and having these feelings. She said, is this normal for after this work? And I said, yes, you
Hmm.
know, but the difference was she was aware of it and
Yeah.
didn't react to the thing that was happening. She was able to meet that feeling in a new way and kind of hold herself through that thing. And when you talked about safety, it's like I've really practiced holding myself. So I felt
Mhm.
safe being with me on the table. And so it's like the more I can hold myself through these experiences, not reaching and grabbing for the thing that's going to comfort me, but like, no, I've got me, has been a really big help. And, when my clients do come to the table, like I'm confident in that I've done a lot of my own inner work. Like I've met my own hell. so
Yeah.
so I'm comfortable with other people's hell. Like I'm
Yeah.
comfortable with the uncomfortable and I'm ready for it. And like part of me welcomes it. It's my Scorpio nature. What can I say? I'm here for the depths. I'm
This
here for
is
the depths.
very, very scorpionic work, and
Oh yeah.
I'd be so curious to see everybody's placements. I have some deep Scorpio placements in my chart as well, and
Yeah.
also our generation has a big Pluto and Scorpio thing going on, So we're all just here for that deep work, but that's exactly right. Like I've met my own hell, and I'm prepared to hold yours. It doesn't always get that intense. But what Margaret's
No.
speaking to is very real, and it's this when you can cultivate and stay in a place of stillness and surrender and peace and acceptance and compassion, even when you're going through the worst thing that has ever happened to you and you're releasing that deep, deep trauma from your own body. As practitioners, when we do this work ourselves and we remove that restriction and that insulation from the flow of our energy, from our unification, from the part of ourself that's dropped off the map and gone into the shadow of the unconscious. When we hold space for that to come out, it expands our capacity to witness that in others and not freak out when someone is
Yeah.
screaming bloody murder on the table or suddenly crying or needs us in that moment to fulfill the role of the other, the bulldozer. I'm not the bulldozer really, but in that moment, I need to become the bulldozer and meet you in your bulldozed. So I have to find that layer of you and I'm going to activate that for you and not take it personally. And if you need to tell that bulldozer F you, get out of my life, you shouldn't have done this to me, etc. I can hold space for somebody to have that release in a space of non-judgment and just holding and awareness. And that is, I personally, as the facilitator of this last training, I trust Margaret to hold that space for people. I saw her do that exceptionally well during our time in the class, and I also saw her allow herself to go into her process. So I have full faith and confidence that if somebody is ready to go to those places, that you will be able to hold them in it. So thank you for all this wonderful sharing, and it was a joy to have you in class. I really look forward to working with you again. Is there anything else that you feel is important or that's just coming forward that you feel like you want to share?
No, I just feel really grateful for this, this opportunity, and I'm glad that I followed my heart. I'm glad I followed the call because it was
Cool.
this pull, and it was
Yeah.
when I first saw you pop up on my Facebook, there was something like click, right? Like you got to follow that thing, and then I saw your offerings, and I was like, wow, this is potent, this is powerful, and it lit me up, and I'm not in a place where I can deny my heart anymore. So we got to
Yeah.
just keep going forward and follow that call, follow that pull. And yeah, there were lots of times in class where I felt that pull. I felt that call towards certain people on the table. And they even called me over. And like you said, we can fulfill a role for people. Like I'm not their mother, but I am a mother. And so I was able to hold that mother energy for certain people who needed it and called me towards it, asking me, Margaret, can we work on this? Because I have some mother stuff coming up and
Yeah.
I'm happy to do that. But
Mhm.
when we got off the table, like, I'm not your mama. We're
Yeah.
gonna like go hang out and have pizza together and it's cool. Like, you know,
Yeah.
it's all good. But I'm happy to sit in that space as the mirror and the reflector for my clients, for people to work through their stuff. And it's not about me. So I'm just so grateful, Daniel. Thank you so much for this opportunity and just really opening my eyes and like gently guiding me forward and calling me forward and to strip off some of the filters that I was still holding. And I feel like I'm seeing my body work with a new eyes, and I'm just really grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. This is a new journey for me, but it's a culmination of all my experiences. And from that first time I witnessed an emotional release by my teacher, I was hooked. I was like, I got to figure all of this out. And it's taken more than a decade to get to where I am at now. But this is one, I think maybe this is maybe an ending note that I want to leave people on. But when you talk about when we talk about that expansion of capacity, being with the stuff that's off the mat, bringing the light and the hydration and the energization back, the connection back to ourself, and expanding that capacity. This is really where I think, as body workers who are doing somatic work, we have the opportunity to change the culture and to guide people into something deeper because not everybody knows. We've been in a holistic health renaissance probably since the 70s, and people are more aware of things like fascia and somatic work. But there's still part of massage therapy, which I personally don't ever really identify as a massage therapist because
Yeah, really.
the connotation, I love body worker, but not so much
Body
massage
worker.
therapist because the connotations have been trapped in the industry that's run by like spa chains, massage envy. And then, unless you are willing to go off the beaten path and explore different modalities, try a Rolfer, try a myofascial, try Thai massage, all these different things. It's mostly us that knows the power of what we're able to do. But as we step into this work and we talk about doing this work and we share with people and invite them into the opportunity of doing this work, we are able to kind of like guide the culture and steer the industry towards the power of touch to work on a much more profound level. And
Mhm.
so what I notice is that once you experience a release like Margaret has, or some of my stories, you're kind of just like, I wonder when the next time in my life I'm going to get to go do that. I kind of want to just stay at seminar. Can we just stay here for like
Yeah,
6 years until it's all gone? Do we
yeah.
get to move to Hogwarts and then we just have artist residency for the next 5 years and let's just keep working on each other until it's all gone?
So it's
Because
all gone.
what would be possible for me? What would by me experience of my body and my mind like? unlimited from all of these stories I've had. But what it comes back to me, and I tell this to my clients very often, is we're touching on things that obviously, as body workers, we're not here to entertain the story or to psychoanalyze people. However, these are the things, boundaries, relationships. We end up touching places where those stories impact those things. And so I always bring it back to like that divine intelligence, that inner wisdom of the body. It's so primordial, it's so ancient because even the single cell bacterium with its little flagellum, moving through with its little whiptail, knows to go towards the nutrients, the things that give life, and away from the predator that wants to eat it and destroy it and consume it. As modern mammals, that signal gets so crossed, and we get so confused, and we get so wrapped up in all these beliefs and stories. When we can bring somebody through these experiences, it brings us back to that ease, that draw, that pull that you're experiencing, where we don't have to think about what's right for us. We can go with where we feel we know is the right path for us. And so
Mhm.
whether that's as a client who's working through some stuff, maybe a relationship, I don't know if I should quit my job or move somewhere or all these things, activating that inner wisdom to go, no, this is what feels right for me. That feels bad and my boundaries, and I feel like I'm going to get tangled up in some things that are going to be hard. But that feels like, wow, the runway is free. I can go here. I'm ready for takeoff. Bringing that inner intuition back online for people. And then as body workers going, how much can I trust this? Well, I feel pulled here. Wow, that ends up, I get confirmation that that's significant for my client. So even in how we approach bodies and work with them, that intuitive quality, and you heard me say in class a lot, I don't think intuition is some out there, woo-woo thing. It's a sense perception and an awareness that I'm just that present and dropped in that I know what I'm feeling and what I'm sensing. My intuition is being guided by a heightened perception. So that's what we're
Yeah.
taking back on the wisdom of the body, the enlivenment of the human organism and what it's capable of when it's not trapped in all of these bindings. So,
Yes, it's so true. I mean, when you talk about this, I'm thinking about that distortion. It's like the
mm,
static that keeps us from really being able to tune into like what's right for me instead of hearing all the voices on
yes.
the outside, getting distracted by everything that's going on. It's like, how do I tune back in? But when that's all that noise, that distortion going on, it's tough to do that. And I'm speaking to my own experiences, like to free up some of that distortion, free up those that pain in my hip. Like I woke up without pain. I didn't even know
Mm,
how much pain I was in. I woke up and my back didn't hurt and my hips didn't
yeah.
hurt. And went to yoga and I could move. It's like, why do this work? Why go to the depths? Because on the other side is freedom. The
Yeah.
other side is your best life. The other side is, reaching for your full potential and your dreams. And some people have forgotten their dreams. There's times in my life where I've forgotten that I wanted certain things. And it's like, wait, like, why am I here? What am I doing here on this planet? It's like, no, this is why I came. Oh, that's right. Okay, now I can listen. Now I can remember who I am, right? Without all the noise around. And since having that release, like poetry has flown through me. Like I have a new capacity to hold my creativity, my energy, my daughters. I was reacting differently with them, behaving differently with them,
Mm,
not reacting the way that I was in certain ways. And I was able to pull back and be like, oh, okay, I see how I was doing that before. Now I can shift. I can be a better mom and be a better person in general. And like, that's why we do this work, right? Because on the other side of the wailing or the hour of ugly crying and the pain in my shoulder, it's like freedom.
yeah. That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Margaret. That was great. I loved how you put that. And yeah, we're getting about just to an hour now, so I think as much as we probably could talk all day, probably time to cut it for now. But I
Yeah.
look forward to seeing your journey as a practitioner, and I'm here to support you. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Danielle.